Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back to Miss Kitty's Corner. So for today's episode, I wanted to do a read aloud, and specifically, I wanted to do a read aloud of a Dr. Seuss book. And so I picked The Sneetches because I've never actually read this book before. And so I thought, what better time to do it on an episode with my students? So The Sneetches and Other Stories by Dr. Seuss. Let's get started. I'm very excited because I've heard very good things about this book. The Sneetches and Other Stories by Dr. Seuss. Written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss. So Dr. Seuss wrote the words for the book as well as drew the pictures, which is really, that's saying something. That requires a lot of talent, right? The Sneetches. Now, the star-belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big. They were really so small. You might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. That poor Sneetch doesn't look very happy. Let's zoom in on his face. Just because he doesn't have a star on his belly. But because they had stars, all the star-belly Sneetches would brag, "We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches." With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. "We'll have nothing to do with the plain belly sort." And whenever they met some, when they were out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. That's not very nice. When the star-belly children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get in the game? Not at all. You only could play if your bellies had stars, and the plain-bellied children had none upon theirs. At our playground, we play with everybody, right? We don't exclude anybody. When the star-belly Sneetches had Frankfurter roasts, or picnics or parties or marshmallow toasts, they never invited the plain-belly Sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them year after year. Oof. Probably doesn't feel very good to be a plain-bellied Sneetch. Then one day, it seems, while the plain-belly Sneetches were mopping and doping along on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. "My friends," he announced in a voice clear and keen, "my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard of your troubles. I heard you're unhappy, but I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you. I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work at great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed." I hope that Sylvester McMonkey McBean can help these plain-belly Sneetches. Look at all the gadgets he has in his car. Then, quickly, Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine. And he said, "You want stars like a star-belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard." So they clambered inside. Then the big machine roared, and it clonked, and it bonked, and it jerked, and it burked, and it bopped them about. But the thing really worked. When the plain-belly Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Look at that. Going into the machine, they get bopped around and they come out. They had stars. Then they yelled at the ones who had stars at the start. "We're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all just the same now, you snooty old smarties, and now we can go to your Frankfurter parties." Good grief, groaned the ones who had stars at first. We're still the best Sneetches, and they are the worst. But now, how in the world will we know, they all frowned, if which kind is what, or the other way round? How could they tell whether or not one of the Sneetches had a star to begin with, or if the Sneetch just got popped out of the machine and had a new star? So they had to treat them all the same. Just goes to show, again, how everybody should be treated the same, no matter if you have a star upon your belly. Then up came McBean with a very sly wink. And he said, things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That is perfectly true. But come with me, friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best Sneetches on beaches, and all it will cost you is $10 eaches. Oh, It looks as though everybody is very interested in this deal. Belly stars are no longer in style, said McBean. What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars so you won't look like Sneetches who had them on theirs. And that handy machine, working very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Look at that. Now they're all interested in having no stars. They're going into the machine, giving Mr. McBean all their money and popping out with no stars on their bellies. So will we be able to tell them apart? Probably not. Then, with snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks and they let out a shout. We know who is who! Now there isn't a doubt. The best kind of Sneetches are Sneetches without. Then, of course, those with stars all got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them into his star-off machine. Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guess, things really got into a horrible mess. Oof. I wonder how they're going to fix this. All the rest of the day on those wild screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches. Off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines they raced round and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money, they kept running through, until neither the plane nor the star bellies knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was what one, or what one was who. Oh my goodness. Look at this page, and if that doesn't give you a headache, I don't know what will. Imagine that. They say, I want stars on my belly, and then they go in the machine and get a star, and then they say, I don't want them, and go into the other machine, which removes them. All the while, who's in the back collecting his money? Sylvester McMonkey McBean. Then, when every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car up the beach. They never will learn. No, you can't teach a Sneetch. Look at all the faces of the Sneetches looking at Sylvester McMonkey McBean and his machines and all of their money. They probably feel what right now? If you were a Sneetch, how would you be feeling right now? Probably upset. I know I would feel very upset. I would feel like I just got tricked. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm quite happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. The day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day all the Sneetches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not upon theirs. Seems as though they don't care anymore. Look at the people without the stars in their bellies and the Sneetches with the stars in their bellies, shaking hands and say, it doesn't matter. The Zacks. So this is a different story by Dr. Seuss, all in the Sneetches books. One day, making tracks in the prairie of Prax, came a north-going Zacks and a south-going Zacks. Oh, let me show you the picture. And it happened that both of them came to a place where they bumped. There they stood, foot to foot, face to face. Look here, now, the north-going Zacks said. I say, you are blocking my path. You are right in my way. I'm a north-going Zacks, and I always go north. Get out of my way now and let me go forth. Who's in whose way? Snapped the south-going Zacks. I always go south, making south-going tracks. You're in my way, and I ask you to move and let me go south in my south-going groove. Then the north-going Zacks puffed up his chest with pride. I never, he said, take a step to one side. And I'll prove to you that I won't change my ways if I have to keep standing here 59 days. And I'll prove to you, yelled the south-going Zacks, that I can stand here in the prairie of Prax for 59 years, for I live by a rule that I learned as a boy back in south-going school. Never budge, that's my rule. Never budge in the least, not an inch to the west, not an inch to the east. I'll stay here, not budging. I can and I will, if it makes you and me and the whole world stand still. Oh, boy. Boys and girls, what do you think that both the south-going and the north-going Zacks could do to fix this situation? Think about that phrase that I always say in the classroom. What is the blank thing to do? What is the kind thing to do, right? And that would be for either of them, both of them, to step aside and say, you can go first. That fills somebody's bucket. But let's see. They're not in our classroom. Let's see what they do. Well, of course the world didn't stand still. The world grew. In a couple of years, the new highway came through and they built it right over those two stubborn Zacks and left them there, standing unbudged in their tracks. Oh my. They still can't come to an agreement or get along with each other. That is pretty silly. Oh boy, too many Daves. I've heard of this story and I'm very excited to read it. Did I ever tell you that Mrs. McCabe had 23 sons and she named them all Dave? Wow, how does she keep track? Well, she did, and that wasn't a smart thing to do. You see, when she wants one and calls out, yoo-hoo, come into the house, Dave, she doesn't get one. All 23 Daves of hers comes on the run. What are you thinking right now? Miss Kitty is thinking, that is one tiny house for all of those children. And I'm also thinking, I wouldn't have named them all Dave. This makes things quite difficult at the McCaves, as you can imagine, with so many Daves. And often she wishes that when they were born, she had named one of them Bodkin Van Horn, and one of them Who's Foos, and one of them Snim, and one of them Hotshot, and one Sunny Jim, and one of them Shadrach, and one of them Blinky, and one of them Stuffy, and one of them Stinky. Another one Put Put, another one Moonface, another one Marvin O'Gravel Balloon Face, and one of them Ziggy, and one Soggy Muff, one Buffalo Bill, and one Biffalo Buff, and one of them Sneepy, and one Weepy Weed, and one Paris Garters, and one Harris Tweed, and one of them Sir Michael Carmichael Zut, and one of them Oliver Bolivar Butt, and one of them Zanzibar Buck Buck McFate, and but she didn't do it, and now it's too late. Oh my goodness. What was I scared of? Another story by Dr. Seuss. Well, I was walking in the night and I saw nothing scary, for I have never been afraid of anything. Not very. You know, boys and girls, it's okay to be scared of the dark, right? When the sun goes down, but there's usually nothing to be afraid of. Then I was deep within the woods when suddenly I spied them. I saw a pair of pale green pants with nobody inside them. I wasn't scared, but yet I stopped. What could those pants be there for? What could a pair of pants at night be standing in the air for? And then they moved, those empty pants. They kind of started jumping, and then my heart, I must admit, it kind of started thumping. So I got out fast as I could go, sir. I wasn't scared, but pants like that I did not care for. No, sir. Oh my goodness. But when we think about it, we know that's not possible, right? After that, a week went by. Then one dark night in Greenwich, I had to do an errand there and fetch some Greenwich spinach. Well, I had fetched the spinach. I was starting back through town when those pants raced round a corner and they almost knocked me down. I lost my Greenwich spinach, but I didn't even care. I ran for home. Believe me, I had really a scare. Now, bicycles were never made for pale green pants to ride 'em, especially spooky pale green pants with nobody inside 'em. And the next night, I was fishing for doubt trout on Roover River when those pants came rowing toward me. Well, I started in to shiver. And by now I was so frightened that I'll tell you, but I hate to. I screamed and rode away and lost my hook and line and bait too. Those pale green pants. I wonder what the story is behind those pale green pants. I ran and found a brickle bush. I hid myself away. I got brickles in my britches, but I stayed there anyway. I stayed all night, the next night too. I'd still be there, no doubt, but I had to do an errand, and so the next night I went out. In the brickle bush. That probably wasn't very comfortable. I had to do an errand, had to pick a peck of snide in a dark and gloomy snide field. There was almost 9 miles wide. I said, I do not fear those pants with nobody inside them. I said and said and said those words. I said them, but I lied them. Meaning it wasn't the truth. He was saying those words, I do not fear those pants, but he actually did. Then I reached inside a snide bush, and the next thing I knew, I felt my hand touch someone, and I'll bet that you know who. And there I was, caught in the snide, and in that dreadful place those spooky empty pants and I were standing face to face. I yelled for help, I screamed, I shrieked, I hollowed, I yowled, I cried. Oh, save me from these pale green pants with nobody inside. But then a strange thing happened. Why, those pants began to cry. Those pants began to tremble. They were just as scared as I. I never heard such whimpering, and I began to see that I was just as strange to them as they were strange to me. Boys and girls, that's usually the case. If we are scared of something, chances are that whatever we're scared of is also just as scared of us. And that goes for many different types of animals, especially. I put my arm around their waist and sat right down beside them. I calmed them down. Poor empty pants with nobody inside them. And look at that. They became friends after all. And now we meet quite often, those empty pants and I, and we never shake or tremble. We both smile and we say hi. Nothing to be scared of, right? The end. Well, boys and girls, I really hope that you enjoyed the Dr. Seuss stories inside this book because I greatly enjoy reading them. It always puts me in a good mood, no matter what. Dr. Seuss rhyming always lifts my mood. So I hope that you really enjoyed this episode, and I cannot wait to see you in tomorrow's episode. I hope you all have a great night, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.